They found her in the wreckage, silent, unarmed, and watching them like she already knew their fate. She wasn't human. She wasn't hostile. But she carried a message that could end everything. A machine older than time was waking. And it wanted to know if humanity was worth saving. This isn't just a story about war. It's about the choice between destruction and redemption, between silence and survival. And it all begins with a single question. What are we really worth? If you are new here, then please subscribe this channel and show thumbs up by liking the video. Let's move toward wonderful story. The sky cracked like glass as the transport ship broke through the upper atmosphere. Its hull trembled, groaning under pressure, and inside, the soldiers held on in silence. Commander Thalen Race barely blinked, as a full cup of synth coffee rolled off its holder and hit the floor, spilling across the metal in slow drips. No one moved to clean it. They'd all gotten used to this, the shaking, the near malfunctions, the long missions with no promises. Still, something about today felt different, tense, weighted. Race kept his eyes locked on the front monitor. A blinking grid displayed their target coordinates, zeroing in on a barren place known as the Silent Basin. Official reports called it an unexplored zone, but soldiers had a different name for it, the Hushlands, a place where tech died, voices didn't echo, and no mission ever came back with answers. Their job was to investigate a crash. An unknown vessel had gone down hard. No distress signal, no identification tag, just static. Lornas, seated to Race's left, adjusted the strap on his shoulder rig and muttered, "If this thing falls apart midair, I'm blaming your last maintenance report." "I'd blame the weather," Race said without looking. "It's always the weather on dead planets." The ramp hissed open. Heat flooded the cabin. Outside, the terrain was raw and cracked, like a planet in the middle of healing, or dying. Their boots hit the surface in unison, trained, alert, ready. Dust clung to the air like memory. Around them, strange rock formations rose like broken towers. The shipwreck sat among them, dark and half sunk into the earth, its surface unlike anything Race had seen before, smooth and pulsing faintly with a blue glow. "Spread out. Keep your signals open," Race ordered. Draina, the team medic, held a scanner close to her chest. Her voice was calm. Something inside. One life. Sign. Weak. They approached with care. The ship's entrance was already open, as if inviting them in. Inside, the air was colder. Still. Race's boots echoed slightly on the alloy floor. Then he saw her. A single figure sat near the back of the vessel. Human-shaped, but not human. She wore no armor, no suit, just a pale garment wrapped tightly around her form. Her skin was a faint, unnatural shade, neither silver nor blue, but something in between. Her eyes, gold like twin moons, stared back at them without fear. Race lowered his weapon slightly. "Identify yourself," he said. She didn't answer. Didn't move. Just watched him. Draina scanned her again. She's alive. No visible injuries. No weapons. "Is this a trap?" Lornis asked. "No trap waits this quietly," Race replied. He stepped closer, careful but not aggressive. "We're not here to hurt you." Still nothing. They brought her back to the base, locking her in a holding cell. She walked without resistance, like someone sleepwalking through a nightmare. No fight, no protest. She sat when they told her to sit. Draina checked her vitals. Everything read strange but stable. She was alive, but not in any way they understood. Later that night, Race sat alone near the observation deck, watching the stars through reinforced glass. The lights flickered once, then again. The hum of the base's systems grew quieter, more distant. He stood and walked toward the cell wing, where backup lights had already switched to emergency red. He carried a tray with 2 cups of bitter, synth coffee. The silence pressed against him. It wasn't just the loss of sound, it was like the air itself had grown thick with waiting. He reached the cell and stopped. She was there, still seated, hands in her lap, watching the door. He tapped on the glass. No power, he said. I guess we're getting the full experience. For a moment, he expected no reply. Then she spoke. Her voice was soft with a strange cadence, as if words were something she remembered rather than lived. You're different from the others, she said. Race blinked. Took you long enough. She tilted her head. Most of your kind try to interrogate me. You offer coffee. It's terrible coffee, to be fair. She looked at it with mild curiosity. Then why bring it? He shrugged. Habit. There was a pause, the kind that stretched longer than expected. I'm Saren, she said, finally. Race nodded. Commander Race. But most people just call me Race. Shorter to yell. The emergency lights flickered again. A deep metallic groan echoed through the base. Race looked down at the door control. It clicked once, then hissed. Slowly, the door slid halfway open. That shouldn't happen, he muttered. Saren stood. She didn't make any move toward him, but her presence seemed heavier now, more real. You're not afraid, she said. I've seen worse, Race replied. One time I had to eat rations labeled meat-like texture. That was trauma. She almost smiled. It wasn't full, not wide, but something in her expression softened, just for a second. I surrendered, she said. Race blinked. You crashed your ship on purpose? I had to deliver a message. What kind of message? She looked him in the eyes. One that your people need to hear, before it's too late. Another silence. Then far down the corridor, a console beeped back to life. Power was returning. Slowly. Race held out the extra cup of coffee. Might as well drink it. It's probably radioactive, but still warm. Saren took it with both hands. And for a flicker of a moment, the silence, the distance between them felt smaller. They stood there, two strangers in the middle of nowhere, holding terrible coffee and the weight of something that hadn't yet begun. The base was quiet in a way that didn't feel natural. Not just the kind of silence that came during sleep, shifts or routine shutdowns, but the heavy, tense kind that made people whisper without knowing why. The lights were back on. The systems had rebooted, but the unease hadn't left. Commander Thalen Race walked the dim hallway with slow steps, a datapad tucked under one arm and a warm mug in the other. Most of the crew were either asleep or pretending to be, giving the corridors an abandoned feeling. Only the low hum of backup generators echoed through the floor panels. He stopped outside the holding cell. The transparent door glowed faintly. Inside, Saren sat cross-legged on the floor, hands resting in her lap, eyes closed. She hadn't asked for anything, not food, not answers. She hadn't said another word since their first strange exchange the night before. Race stared for a moment, then tapped lightly on the glass with the edge of the mug. You still alive? In there? He said softly. Saren opened her eyes, golden and unreadable. For now. He stepped closer, resting the mug on the edge of the barrier. I brought more terrible coffee. If this keeps happening, I might have to start calling it a peace offering. She stood slowly and walked toward the door. Her steps were quiet but not hesitant. She stared at the mug for a moment before picking it up. You drink this willingly? She asked. Race gave a tired shrug. We drink worse during missions. One time someone brewed tea out of moss and regret. Saren took a small sip, winced, and held the cup at a distance like it might bite. You're all strange. He gave a crooked smile. Takes one to know one. A pause followed. Not awkward, but not comfortable either. It was the kind of pause that happens when two people want to ask a question but don't know where to begin. Finally, Saren broke the silence. You're not what I expected. Race raised an eyebrow. And what were you expecting? Uniforms, orders, cold eyes. You're softer. I'll try not to take offense. You should, she said with the smallest twitch of her lips. It wasn't quite a smile, but it was something. Race glanced at the door controls. They'd fully rebooted now, glowing green and steady, with A few taps, the cell door hissed open completely. "You trust me already?" she asked, not stepping out. He met her gaze. "No, but I trust what I've seen. You could have run last night. You didn't. That counts for something." She stepped out slowly, her movement cautious but not fearful. Race motioned down the hall. "There's a common room nearby. At least it has chairs." They walked together through the base, past rows of silent consoles and flickering status panels. The tension in the air followed them, as if the base itself was holding its breath. In the common room, a few emergency lights cast long shadows over metal tables and half-open ration packs. One table had been flipped during the earlier power loss and left that way. Race didn't bother fixing it. Instead, he sat on the edge of a crate and took another sip from his cup. Saran stayed standing. "You said something about a message," he said quietly. She didn't answer at first. Her eyes wandered the room, then settled on a nearby wall screen showing a looping map of the crash site. "My sister sent a warning. I was supposed to deliver it, but I couldn't transmit it safely, so I crashed." Race narrowed his eyes. "You crashed a ship into contested territory just to deliver a message?" She was embedded deep within Terran systems, discovered something dangerous, something old. "I came to stop it from waking." He leaned forward. "What exactly is it?" Saran shook her head. "I don't fully understand it myself, but it's not a weapon in the traditional sense. It's something that listens. It watches. And when it chooses, it decides if a species deserves to continue." Race sat back. "That sounds horrifying." "It is," she said. "It was built by an extinct race. My people only found pieces of it. My sister found the core. She linked her mind to it and sent me part of the message." Race rubbed his face with one hand. "You're telling me the crash site holds a piece of something that judges civilizations?" Saran nodded. "And it's waking." A long silence stretched between them again. Outside the room, the hum of power systems pulsed softly, as if the base had picked up on the weight of their conversation. Race stood slowly and walked toward the wall display. He touched the panel and brought up the crash site's layout. "If what you're saying is true, then we need to go back. We need to retrieve what's left." "I already retrieved the core," Saran said. "I hid it beneath the wreckage in a sealed chamber only I can access." Race turned to face her. "Then let's get it." She hesitated. "If we bring it here, it might connect again. It might awaken faster." "We don't have time to worry about mites. Whatever this thing is, if it's choosing now to speak, we should be listening." Saran studied his face for a long moment, then finally nodded. Race took a breath and finished his coffee. "Let's hope it's not as terrible as this drink." Saran looked at the mug again. "It might be worse." They left the room without another word, walking back into the echoing corridors of the base. Neither of them noticed the faint pulse from the distant crash site. The signal had started again, and something out there had heard it. The transport rolled slowly over cracked, red stone, its wheels kicking up dust that shimmered faintly under the pale sky. Commander Thalen Race sat behind the controls, his hands steady despite the rough terrain. Beside him, Saran stared out the window in silence, eyes fixed on the distant horizon where dark shapes rose like broken bones from the earth. Behind them in the cramped cabin, Lorne checked equipment, muttering about bad luck and cursed ruins. The air inside the vehicle was thick with tension and the strange smell of overworked circuits. They were heading back to the wreck site. This time, not for recovery, but to uncover something ancient, something that didn't belong to any known world. Saran had called it a judgment device, a machine designed not to destroy but to decide. What it was deciding exactly remained unclear. Race didn't like unclear. As they reached the basin, the wind picked up, howling low and steady through the twisted rocks. The remains of Saran's ship still lay half buried in the sand, black and silent. Nothing had moved since the crash. No scavengers, no patrols. It was as if even the wild things knew to stay away. Race parked the rover and stepped out first. The ground felt softer than before, as though it had been disturbed from below. Saren followed him closely, her steps slow and careful. She led them to the far side of the wreck, to a place beneath a crumpled wing. She knelt and pressed her hand against the alloy. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a quiet click, and a hidden panel slid open, revealing a chamber carved into the rock. Inside, resting on a shallow pedestal, was a smooth crystal sphere, dark and pulsing gently with faint inner light. "This is it," she said. "The core." Race crouched beside it. "It doesn't look like much." "It's not what it looks like. It's what it remembers." Together, they lifted it from the chamber and placed it inside a protective field box. The moment they sealed, Race felt a soft pressure at the edge of his mind, like a whisper just out of hearing. He exchanged a look with Saran, who nodded slowly. "It's awake." They returned to the base in silence. Even Lornas didn't joke this time. Everyone could feel it. The strange weight that had followed them back, the quiet breath of something unseen and watching. In the tech lab, Draina helped them install the core into the scanner array. As the connections locked in, the lights dimmed. The machine hummed low, not with energy, but with something deeper: awareness. Images flickered on the screen. Faint shapes, distorted signals, glimpses of stars that didn't match any map. Then came voices, layered and hard to follow, speaking in a language that was almost but not quite understandable. Saren stood closest to the core, her eyes locked on it. "It's speaking through memory," she said, "showing what it's seen." The images sharpened. A fleet breaking apart under heavy fire, a planet consumed in silence. Then a face, familiar to Saran. She stepped back as it appeared fully. "That's my sister." Race watched. "She's alive?" "No," Saran said quietly. She uploaded her mind into the machine. She became part of it. Lornas, standing behind them, blinked. "You mean she's inside that thing?" "She used herself to stop it," Saran explained, "to give others time, but now it's looking again. Testing." Race crossed his arms. "Testing? What?" Saran looked at him. "Us." The room fell quiet. The machine pulsed as if agreeing. Then, from the core, a voice emerged, not loud but clear enough for all to hear. "What are you worth?" Race took a step forward. "That depends. What's the question behind that question?" The voice said nothing more. The machine simply waited. Saran stepped closer. "It wants a reason to wait longer, a reason to believe we're not beyond saving." Race didn't answer right away. He looked at the others. At Lornas, tired but ready. At Draina, hands clenched, watching with quiet fear. Then back at Saran. "Tell it this," he said softly. "Tell it we're unfinished. That we're broken in ways we're still trying to understand, but that we care. That some of us are trying to fix what we've broken. And that means something." Saran closed her eyes and placed her hand on the core. A moment passed. Then the light inside dimmed. The machine's hum softened, like a deep breath being released. The images on the screen faded. The power stabilized. Race looked around. "Did it accept that?" Saran nodded slowly. "For now, but it will ask again." Lornas let out a long sigh. "Well, that wasn't terrifying at all." Race gave him a sideways glance. "It's not over." "No," Saran agreed. "It's dreaming again. But dreams can wake." As the lab returned to its normal lights and sounds, the base felt different. Quieter. Not in fear, but in the kind of silence that comes after something big. Something that almost changed everything. Race leaned against the console and looked at Saran. "Your sister gave herself to delay it. What do we do if it wakes again?" Saran didn't look away. "Next time we'll need more than words, and..." Outside, deep beneath the quiet stars, the dreaming machine waited. Morning on the base came slowly, dragging pale light across metal walls and tired faces. The air still held the weight of the night before, the presence of something old and powerful now resting once again, but only for a while. Commander Thalen Race stood near the launch pad, watching as supplies were loaded into the scout ship. His uniform was wrinkled, his shoulders stiff, but his mind was calm in a way it hadn't been in years. Saren stood a few feet away, adjusting the settings on her new field suit. The armor was a strange mix, Terran plating fused with pieces of her own people's tech. Light pulsed faintly along her spine like breathing circuits. Lornis carried the last crate up the ramp, still chewing on a protein bar. "I've added everything we might need," he said through a mouthful. "Supplies, comm gear, rations, and a playlist that won't drive us insane." Race raised an eyebrow. "What's on it?" Lornis grinned. "Mostly orchestral stuff, a little bit of old Earth pop, and one track where Saren says, 'You're all doomed,' on repeat." Saren turned slightly. "I never said that." Lornis shrugged. "I edited it together. It's surprisingly convincing." Ray shook his head but didn't smile. Not really. He was focused, eyes drifting toward the horizon. They were going back into the unknown, this time not just to find answers, but to stop something worse. The coordinates stored in the dreaming. Machine's core pointed toward a place neither side of the war had dared enter. It was a dead zone. Once a battlefield, now a graveyard filled with broken drones and drifting metal, guarded by defense systems long forgotten by their creators. Whatever Saron's sister had found was hidden there. Inside the ship, the lights flickered on. Systems hummed to life with a low thrum that echoed through the floor panels. Race sat at the pilot controls. Saron took the co-pilot seat. Lornis flopped into the back, muttering about hazard pay and ancient death machines. As the engines warmed, Race glanced at Saran. "You sure you want to do this?" She didn't turn to look at him. "I need to find what else is out there. Before someone unworthy does." Race nodded. "Then let's go." The ship lifted into the sky, breaking through the atmosphere like a whisper. Outside, stars began to emerge, scattered across the black like sparks on old glass. The journey to the coordinates took less than a day. Time moved strangely during travel, faster in the body, slower in the mind. They reached the edge of the war graveyard just after cycle shift. Ahead, wreckage floated in silence, untouched by life or sound. It was too still. Race slowed the ship, maneuvering through broken hulls and long-dead satellites. The signal grew stronger the deeper they went. Then, at the center of the silence, they saw it. The breath engine. It looked like a sphere, but not quite. Its surface moved as if made of liquid and light, folding in on itself, forming shapes no human eye could track. It didn't pulse, didn't glow. It just waited. Race felt the same pressure as before, deep in his chest, like being watched by something that didn't blink. Saron approached the interface console. She placed her hand on it, and once again the ship shifted, lights dimmed, air changed, even sound grew thinner. The breath engine responded to her. It always had. But this time there was no message, no voice, just stillness. Race stepped closer. "Is it asleep?" "No," she said. "It's listening." Lornis looked around nervously. "Listening for what?" "For what comes next," she said quietly. "For how we respond." She closed her eyes and spoke softly, not to Race, not to Lornis, but to the engine. She spoke about pain and choice and her sister, about hope and fear and how people change. Her voice didn't shake. She wasn't asking for mercy. She was offering truth. When she finished, the ship's lights slowly returned to normal. The engine folded inward, compressing itself, vanishing without sound, like space had simply forgotten it was ever there. They stood in silence. Lornis exhaled. "So, we didn't die. That's nice." Race didn't respond. He was watching Saran. On the way back, no one spoke much. There was nothing left to say that hadn't already been spoken in that still, wordless moment between one breath and the next. When they landed at the base, things felt different. The air was lighter. The crew moved with purpose again. Engineers clapped when Lorne stepped off the ship, partly surprised he'd survived. Race received a quiet nod from the medic, and even a rare smile from the technician who once swore he'd never work under Race again. Siran walked alone for a while after that, tracing the perimeter of the base, eyes distant. She stopped when she found Race leaning against a cargo crate, arms crossed, staring at the clouds like he expected them to fall. "You stayed," she said. "I was busy," he replied. "Also, the ship's keys were missing." She stepped closer. "When I first met you, I thought you were just another weapon. I might still be." "No," she said softly. "You watch before you strike. You listen." Race looked at her. "What will you do now?" "There are more like the engine, smaller, dangerous. I have to find them before someone else does." "You always talk like you're about to leave." "I always expect to." Race nodded. "I've got nothing better to do. And I hear chasing ancient alien machines is good for cardio." For the first time, she smiled. Not a flicker. Not a smirk. A real one. Lorne passed by carrying a box labeled, "Definitely not explosives," and muttered, "If you two start kissing, I'm ejecting myself." Race ignored him. "So, partners?" Siran extended her hand. He took it, and far beyond the stars, something dreamed in silence and hoped.